Right now, as you sit there listening to these words, there's a conversation happening inside your head. It's been going on since you woke up this morning, and it was there when you went to sleep last night. This conversation never stops. It's the most important dialogue you'll ever engage in, yet most people never really listen to what's being said. This internal voice is shaping your destiny with every whispered thought, every silent judgment, every quiet assumption about what you can and cannot do. And here's what might shock you. Most of us are losing this conversation. We're being defeated not by the world around us, but by the battlefield between our ears. You see, there's something happening in the quiet spaces of your mind that determines whether you'll live a life of purpose and achievement or drift through your days wondering why success seems to slip through your fingers like sand. The ancient philosophers knew this truth, and successful people throughout history have discovered it. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your thoughts. But here's where it gets interesting. Most people think their thoughts just happen to them, like weather passing through the sky. They believe they're victims of their own minds, powerless against the endless stream of worry, doubt, and fear that flows through their consciousness. They've never realized that they can actually choose what to think about. Think about this for a moment. When you were a child, you believed you could become anything. You might have wanted to be a firefighter, a teacher, an explorer, or an artist. Your mind was filled with possibilities, not limitations. You didn't wake up worried about failure because failure wasn't even in your vocabulary. You just knew that somehow, some way, you could make it happen. What changed? Life happened. People told you to be realistic. You experienced disappointments. You heard no more often than yes. Gradually, that inner voice that once cheered you on began to question your abilities. It started reminding you of past failures instead of future possibilities. It began to whisper that maybe you weren't smart enough, talented enough, or lucky enough to get what you really wanted. And so began the silent battle that most people never win because they don't even know they're fighting it. Every morning when you wake up, you have a choice. You can let that voice run wild, filling your mind with doubt and limitation, or you can take control of the conversation. You can decide what thoughts get to stay and which ones need to go. Most people never make this choice consciously. They just react to whatever pops into their heads, giving equal weight to brilliant insights and baseless fears. Consider the farmer who plants his field. He doesn't scatter seeds randomly and hope for the best. He carefully chooses what to plant, knowing that whatever he puts in the ground will determine his harvest. Your mind is like that field. Every thought you allow to take root will eventually bear fruit in your life. Plant thoughts of limitation, and you'll harvest a limited life. Plant thoughts of possibility, and possibilities will grow all around you. But here's what makes this battle so difficult. The voice in your head often sounds like it's trying to protect you. It tells you not to take that risk because you might fail. It warns you not to hope too high because you might be disappointed. It convinces you to stay where you are because at least it's safe and familiar. This voice isn't evil. It's actually trying to keep you alive, the same way it kept your ancestors alive when physical dangers were everywhere. But in today's world, this protective instinct often holds you back from the very things that would make your life meaningful and fulfilling. The strangest thing about this internal battle is that most people are fighting on the wrong side. They're actually helping their own doubts and fears win. They feed their worries with attention, they rehearse their failures over and over again, and they spend more time thinking about what could go wrong than what could go right. Let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this. What did you think about when you first woke up this morning? Was it excitement about the day ahead, or was it worry about all the things you had to do? Did you feel grateful for another chance to make progress toward your dreams, or did you feel overwhelmed by your responsibilities? Your answer to that question tells you everything you need to know about who's winning the battle in your mind. Here's a truth that might surprise you. Successful people don't have fewer problems than unsuccessful people. They don't have easier lives or better luck or more advantages. What they have is a different relationship with their thoughts. They've learned to be selective about which thoughts deserve their attention and which ones should be dismissed like unwelcome visitors. Think about the last time you saw someone accomplish something that impressed you. Maybe it was a neighbor who built a beautiful garden from nothing but bare soil. Maybe it was a colleague who started their own business while working full-time. Maybe it was someone in your community who learned a new skill later in life. What do you think was happening in their mind before they took action? I'll tell you what wasn't happening. They weren't waiting for their doubts to disappear. They weren't postponing their plans until they felt completely confident. They weren't spending weeks analyzing all the reasons why they might fail. Instead, they made a decision to focus on possibility rather than problems, on solutions rather than obstacles. But here's where most people get confused. They think positive thinking means pretending problems don't exist or putting on a fake smile when things get tough. That's not what this is about at all. This is about choosing to use your mental energy in the most productive way possible. When a ship's captain encounters a storm at sea, he doesn't pretend the storm isn't there. But he also doesn't spend his time complaining about the weather or wishing he were somewhere else. He focuses all his attention on navigating through the storm safely. He thinks about solutions, not problems. He concentrates on what he can control, not what he can't. Your mind works the same way. When challenges arise in your life, you can choose to focus on finding a way through them, or you can choose to focus on how unfair or difficult they are. Both responses acknowledge the reality of the situation, but only one of them actually helps you move forward. The people who win these silent battles have developed what we might call mental discipline. Just like physical discipline helps you stay in shape even when you don't feel like exercising, mental discipline helps you maintain productive thoughts even when your natural tendency is to worry or doubt. This discipline starts with awareness. You have to catch yourself in the act of negative thinking before you can change it. Most people are so used to their destructive thought patterns that they don't even notice them anymore. The worry has become background noise. The self-doubt has become their normal internal soundtrack. But once you start paying attention, you'll be amazed at what you discover. You'll notice how often you predict failure before you even try. You'll catch yourself rehearsing conversations where things go wrong. You'll realize how much time you spend imagining scenarios where you're embarrassed, rejected, or disappointed. And then you'll understand why your life has been the way it has been. You'll see the direct connection between the thoughts you've been thinking and the results you've been getting. This realization can be uncomfortable, but it's also incredibly liberating because it means you have the power to change everything by changing what goes on between your ears. The moment you truly understand that your thoughts create your reality, everything shifts. Suddenly, you're not a victim of circumstances anymore. You're not at the mercy of other people's opinions or economic conditions or past mistakes. You become the author of your own experience, writing a new story with every thought you choose to think. Now, you might be wondering, if this is so simple, why don't more people do it? Why don't we all just decide to think better thoughts and live better lives? The answer lies in understanding just how deeply ingrained our mental habits really are. You see, your mind has been practicing certain thought patterns for years, maybe decades. Just like a path through the woods becomes more defined the more people walk on it, your thought patterns have carved deep grooves in your consciousness. The thoughts of worry, doubt, and limitation have been traveling the same mental pathways for so long that they've become automatic highways in your brain. Breaking these patterns isn't like flipping a switch. It's more like redirecting a river. It takes patience, persistence, and most importantly, a clear vision of where you want that river to flow instead. Think about someone learning to play the piano. At first, every note requires conscious effort. Their fingers move slowly and deliberately as they search for the right keys. But after months of practice, something magical happens. Their fingers begin to find the notes without conscious thought. The music flows naturally because the pathways between their mind and their hands have been strengthened through repetition. Your thoughts work exactly the same way. Right now, negative thinking might be as automatic as breathing, but you can create new pathways, new automatic responses that serve you instead of sabotage you. The key is understanding that this process requires the same kind of dedicated practice that any other skill requires. Here's something most people never realize. Every thought you think is either moving you closer to your goals or further away from them. There's no neutral ground in the territory of the mind. When you think about what you want and how you might achieve it, you're programming yourself for success. When you think about what you fear and what might go wrong, you're programming yourself for failure. Consider the difference between two people facing the same challenge. Let's say they both lose their jobs on the same day. The first person immediately begins thinking about how difficult it will be to find new work, how competitive the job market is, how this setback will affect their family. They rehearse conversations where potential employers reject them. They imagine scenarios where they run out of money. The second person experiences the same initial shock and disappointment. But then they make a conscious choice about where to direct their mental energy. They begin thinking about this as an opportunity to find something even better. They consider skills they've always wanted to develop. They imagine conversations where employers are impressed by their experience and attitude. Both people are dealing with the same reality, but they're creating completely different futures with their thoughts. And here's what's remarkable. The second person doesn't just feel better, they actually perform better. They approach job interviews with confidence instead of desperation. They network with enthusiasm instead of embarrassment. They present themselves as someone any company would be lucky to have, rather than someone grateful for any opportunity. This is the power of winning the silent battle in your mind. It doesn't just change how you feel about your circumstances, it changes the circumstances themselves. But let's be honest about something. There will be moments when choosing positive thoughts feels almost impossible. There will be days when the old patterns seem overwhelmingly strong, when doubt feels more real than hope, when fear seems more logical than faith. These moments are not signs that you're failing. They're signs that you're human. They're also the most important moments in your mental development, because they're when you get to prove to yourself that you're serious about taking control of your inner life. It's easy to think positive thoughts when everything is going well. The real test comes when life hits you with unexpected challenges, when people disappoint you, when plans fall apart despite your best efforts. These are the moments that separate those who occasionally think good thoughts from those who have truly mastered their mental domain. The people who ultimately win these silent battles understand that mastery isn't about perfection, it's about recovery. It's about how quickly you can recognize when you've slipped into old patterns, and how effectively you can redirect your thoughts back toward what you want instead of what you fear. They've learned that every moment offers a new choice, a fresh opportunity to point their mind in the direction of their dreams rather than their disasters. They don't waste time being frustrated with themselves for having negative thoughts. Instead, they simply notice what's happening and make a different choice. Here's what happens when you truly begin to win these silent battles within your mind. The world around you starts to change in ways that seem almost miraculous, but are actually the natural result of your transformed thinking. You begin to notice opportunities that were always there, but that your old way of thinking had made invisible. You start attracting different kinds of people into your life. People who share your newfound sense of possibility rather than your old habits of complaint and limitation. You discover reserves of energy and creativity that you never knew you possessed, because they were being drained by the constant mental effort of worry and self-doubt. But perhaps most importantly, you develop what we might call unshakable confidence. Not the kind of shallow confidence that depends on everything going your way, but the deep, quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can handle whatever life sends your direction, because you've learned to control the one thing that determines how you'll respond to any situation: your thoughts. Let me tell you about a woman who understood this principle better than most. She lived in a small town where opportunities were scarce, and everyone told her that people like her didn't achieve great things. She had every excuse to accept limitation as her destiny. Her family had always struggled financially. She had no special connections or advantages. She faced obstacles that would have stopped most people before they even started. But she had discovered something that changed everything. She realized that the biggest prison isn't made of bars and walls, it's made of thoughts and beliefs. She understood that she had been carrying around a set of ideas about what was possible for someone in her circumstances, and those ideas were the only real barriers between her and the life she wanted to live. So she began a quiet revolution in her own mind. Instead of thinking about all the reasons why her dreams were unrealistic, she spent her mental energy figuring out how she might achieve them. Instead of focusing on her disadvantages, she looked for ways to turn them into strengths. Instead of waiting for someone to give her permission to succeed, she gave herself permission. The change didn't happen overnight, but it did happen. As her thinking shifted, so did her actions. As her actions changed, so did her results. Within a few years, she had not only achieved what everyone said was impossible for someone in her situation, she had exceeded her own original dreams. Was she lucky? Did she have some special talent that others lacked? The answer is no and no. What she had was the understanding that success isn't about your circumstances, it's about your response to your circumstances. And your response is always determined by what's happening in the silent spaces of your mind. Now, I want you to think about your own life for a moment. What dreams have you abandoned not because they were truly impossible, but because the voice in your head convinced you they were too difficult, too risky, or too unrealistic for someone like you? What goals have you set aside not because you lack the ability to achieve them, but because you lacked the mental discipline to maintain belief in yourself when obstacles appeared? How many times have you been defeated not by external circumstances but by your own internal conversation? Here's what I want you to understand. Those dreams, those goals, those possibilities that you've pushed aside are not gone forever. They're waiting for you to win the battle that matters most, the battle for control of your own mind. But winning this battle requires more than just understanding these principles. It requires a decision, a commitment that goes deeper than good intentions or wishful thinking. It requires you to take full responsibility for the quality of your thoughts, which means taking full responsibility for the quality of your life. This is where most people stumble. They want the results of disciplined thinking, but they're not willing to do the daily work of mental discipline. They want to feel confident, but they're not willing to consistently choose confident thoughts. They want opportunities to appear, but they're not willing to train their minds to recognize and seize the opportunities that are already there. The truth is, there's no magic formula, no secret technique, no shortcut to mastering your mental world. There's only the simple daily practice of choosing thoughts that serve your highest good rather than thoughts that keep you stuck in mediocrity or misery. Every morning when you wake up, you have a choice. You can let your mind wander wherever it wants to go, which usually means replaying yesterday's problems and rehearsing tomorrow's worries. Or you can consciously direct your thoughts toward what you want to create, accomplish, and become. Every time you face a challenge, you have a choice. You can focus on everything that could go wrong, or you can focus on finding a way to make things go right. You can think about why something won't work, or you can think about how it might work. Every time you interact with other people, you have a choice. You can approach them with thoughts of judgment, suspicion, or indifference, or you can approach them with thoughts of curiosity, kindness, and genuine interest in their well-being. These choices might seem small, but they add up to create the entire experience of your life. They determine whether you wake up each day feeling excited about possibilities or overwhelmed by problems. They determine whether you see yourself as a victim of circumstances or as the architect of your own destiny. The battle for your mind never ends, but neither does your opportunity to win it. Every moment offers a fresh chance to choose thoughts that elevate rather than diminish you, thoughts that expand rather than contract your sense of what's possible. And when you make this choice consistently, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop being someone who occasionally has good thoughts and become someone who has trained their mind to serve their highest aspirations. You stop being at the mercy of whatever random thoughts happen to float through your consciousness and become the deliberate creator of your own mental environment. This is when you truly begin to live, not just exist. This is when your life becomes a masterpiece instead of an accident. This is when you discover what you were really capable of all along. The silent battle within your mind is the most important battle you'll ever fight, because every other victory in your life depends on winning this one first. The question isn't whether you're capable of winning it. The question is whether you're committed to fighting it with everything you have, starting right now, in this very moment, with the very next thought you choose to think.